look to get started, everybody. I want to welcome you to the executive webinar series. Hallway Speaks is our topic, and we're featuring Dr. Sandra Duncan. She's a leader, she's an educator, and an author. She's well known throughout the ECE and childcare world, and we're so glad to have her today. And we will be introducing her in just a few moments. We're going to move forward and go through a few different housekeeping items as we do after our welcome, and then we'll get quickly into the hallway speak. We do appreciate you folks coming on, as we always appreciate it, and hopefully everybody had a happy and healthy Thanksgiving as we get into the holiday season here. So with that said, just a few reminders. If you do have questions, please put your questions into the Q&A button that you see on the screen here. And that's an opportunity for you to ask any questions if we have time, so I could share them with Dr. Duncan, as well as there is going to be a point in here that we may ask you for some feedback. And that's an opportunity to put those in your Q&A area. It's the best way for us to have a chance to see them and look at them. And then we're going to go through a few housekeeping items. And that is these items that we'll go through. Oh, excuse me, it's your certificate. My apologies. Everybody gets a certificate who would like one for this to count as your continuing education credits. And that'll be part of what you do through the registration that you've received here today. We're going to go into housekeeping. We have a few items through housekeeping, and then we're going to rapidly get to Dr. Duncan and her presentation. And we look to get started right about now. So one of the elements that I think is really important for us is we want to tell you just a little bit about our mission. And when I say about our mission, I'm talking about Inspire Care 360. It's really important for you to understand why we do what we do. We're really in here because we believe that childcare schools are, we're there to really develop, educate, provide care and security for the next generation of kids. And to do that, we seek stability in our teachers as well as in our administrators. So with that ability, we believe your positive culture gives you the ability to recruit and retain. And also we realize that great culture is more than wages. They need to have benefits and they need to have belonging. The reason we've put this here today is because we think it's very important for people to understand where we come from. We're owner-operators, we own our own centers, and we will continue to own our own centers, even though Inspire Care 360 has a footprint from coast to coast and is serving many members throughout the nation. And it is important for you to recognize that for us, it is really to help that next generation. It's really to help you and support you to get to your goals and your missions if you're one of our members. For those of you who are not and haven't learned yet a great deal about some of the things that IC360 has, as well as some of you may have heard of our Healthy Advantage solution. And I'm going to play a really quick video. It's going to have me and tell me to do a new share screen here. And with doing that share, it is going to allow me to go on to, let's see here, and you should be able to see it. If for any reasons, I'll have one of my team members pop on and tell me, Tony, that's not working. But we'll go here and let's play.
Kelly, I just received a 2-week notice from Shauna in toddlers. That is really going to hurt ratios.
Why is she leaving? She just received a pay increase, and I thought it was more than fair.
The economy is tough, and she is no longer on her parents' insurance. Without any benefits here, she does not see this as a career.
Our candidate just denied our job offer to fill the teacher-toddler spot. What happened? She needed basic benefits, and ours were just too expensive.
Lacking affordable and flexible healthcare benefits puts your schools at a significant disadvantage. Recruiting and retaining team members becomes a real challenge. Introducing IC360 ECE Healthy Advantage, an affordable and flexible healthcare benefit package. Developed with ECE teachers, staff, and administrators in mind. IC360 Healthy Advantage highly affordable and flexible programs include telemedicine, preventative care, primary care visits, specialist care visits, urgent care, behavioral health visits, laboratory services, and name brand and generic prescriptions. For IC360 member owners, the cost is $25 a month per employee. It's only $35 for non-members. And that's not all. IC360 Healthy Advantage also offers affordable options for dental, vision, hospitalization, critical illness, and much more. Why invest in IC360 ECE Healthy Advantage? Highly affordable and flexible plans, covering many basic needs when major medical costs too much and the deductibles are too high. It's focused on recruiting and retaining top talent, and our benefit liaisons help you every step of the way at no additional cost. And with IC360 ECE Healthy Advantage, significantly reduce the cost to help staff enroll into the plans, as we provide a benefit liaison to make the process quick and easy. We manage the whole process, handling enrollment, answering all staff questions, and providing you with payroll reporting to make offering great benefits super easy.
Just heard back from Lauren regarding the toddler position, and she is starting Monday. She loved our benefits and can't wait to join our culture.
Awesome job, Bella.
Our culture is one of the most important things here at Kelly's Playhouse. I am pleased to announce that we are rolling out our new benefit programs to provide the services you have been asking for. Thank you, Kelly.
Schedule your one-on-one discussion today by going to this link at benefits@inspirecare360.com.
And thank everybody for being patient and going through and having an opportunity to see that. We are now going to continue on with our presentation, but that was about our IC360 ECE Healthy Advantage program. And it is, as you know, if you've been to a few of these presentations, it has been very relevant for us in the sense it's been helping out a lot of our members, especially with 60% of childcare teachers not having any type of benefits because they can either not afford that or wipes out their paycheck or the deductibles are way too high. So if you want to learn more about that, the other thing too is our executive coaching and mentoring is coming. It will be here in January, and we have 5 to 6 on our bench, highly experienced certified coaches that come out of the childcare field that have run and own and operate their own centers and have really built up very strong businesses. So if you have interest in learning more about that too. And with that said, let's go ahead, and would you mind coming on and turning on your video for us, Sandra? I assume you're on with us. Can you hear me, Sandra?
I can.
Oh, wonderful. Great. So let me introduce to you Dr. Sandra Duncan. With more than 45 years of experience and a doctorate in education, Dr. Duncan has a wide variety of background, very much in the ECE space, the education space. When she was telling me about her background and her experience, I tell you, I was not only wildly impressed, I can only strive to have a background like that through my years. Extensive experience with young children, obviously parents, all the way up to the university level. And she has done a lot of work with design of not only training and professional development, but also the design of centers and how the layout of those centers are. And that is what she's going to be talking more about today. She is just creating a new line of preschool furniture called Sense and Place, and she's authored several teacher resource books. Welcome, Sandra. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me
Awesome.
to be here.
Oh, no, it's a real pleasure to have you. And we're going to get into this Hallway Speaks. And for me to do that, I'm going to stop sharing and let you share because I know you have your own presentation. So I'm going to let you have the comm here.
Thank you.
Wonderful. And it's all yours to share.
Can you see?
Not yet. Oops. Excuse us, we got a little more music, but no, we can't see yours yet. If you try to share yours again.
Okay, I will. Share screen. It must have gone out. So we'll bear with me for a second here.
Here it comes.
It's coming.
Yeah, we could see your screen, and now we can see your PowerPoint if you want to go into show mode.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little big for the screen.
Do you see it?
You go to presenter mode there, and
There we
we
go.
go. We're good. We
Yay.
got there.
Wow, we
Wonderful.
did it. Persistency, right? Well, thank you
You
so
got it.
much for inviting me to be here today. And on the topic of Your Hallway Speaks. Before we begin, though, let me minimize my image here so I can read my notes. Before we begin, I understand that all of us are going through many, many different challenges right now, especially in this time of COVID. As we go through this presentation today, you may see or hear something that doesn't necessarily align with your center policies or your procedures or the rules and regulations of the Board of Health or the fire marshal. I've owned 11 different child care centers back in the day, and I know all about those rules and regulations and policies and procedures. You might also see something that goes against your personal belief. The ideas presented in this presentation are just food for thought. Take these ideas and twist them and tweak them to best suit your own individual situation. Throw them to the wind if you want to. Use these strategies for today or store them away for a rainy day. Use these ideas for COVID, or maybe you might have to use them once we are through to the other side of the mountain, so to speak, with COVID. Use these ideas for inspiration, and they may lead you to other ideas, which is the unique and ultimate goal of this presentation. It's just to inspire. There are going to be cracks in the path because life isn't about perfection. Life is really about finding inspiration even in the cracks of the path. Through the years of preparing presentations, and I've done a lot online lately, I found that there's no one perfect image, which means that there's no one perfect center or no one perfect hallway or no one perfect classroom. As you go through this presentation, I'll point out some cracks in the sidewalk, maybe some issues, so you'll start to understand that there is no perfect environment. Remember, it's really not about creating perfection. It's about creating the best that we and you can possibly do for the good of young children, for the good of teachers, for the good of families and communities. Today, we're going to have you think seriously about something pretty mundane. It's the hallway. We all work hard at creating the best possible environment for young children. That's our job, right? But are we using all the space in our centers to the best advantage? Not only for the children that we serve, but for their parents and for our staff. An often underutilized space are the center hallways. The purpose of this presentation, therefore, is to offer you a new perspective of the ordinary hallway. Space influences us, even that mundane hallway. We act differently, for example, when we're at a football game. We might act and talk differently when we're at a stadium filled with fans and spectators and sitting on that hard, cold bench and drinking the beer or eating the hot dogs. Our words, our body language, our actions, what we do is quite different than if we were, for example, in a church or synagogue. It's because of our expectations for these two different places. Goldenhagen wrote a wonderful book. It's called Welcome to Your World, How Built Environment Shapes Our Lives. She articulates the way in which a room, a building, a park, a city square, a child care center affects us in numerous ways. And I quote, "The built environment offers our physical health and our mental health. It affects them greatly. And it affects the way we form and sustain communities," unquote. The way in which we design our communities and the way in which we design our hallways are important. What we do and how we design our centers, even those hallways, influence our neighbors and communities. Goldhagen further states, the more we learn about how people actually experience the environments in which they live their lives, the more obvious it will become that a well-designed environment falls not on a continuum stretching from high art to vernacular buildings, but, and this is so important, but a very different sort of continuum. Somewhere what she calls between a crucial need of people and a basic human right. The space we design for young children is not only a need, but it's a basic human right, even those hallways. Jim Greenman, in his great book that just got revised and revamped in 2017, writes, "Space speaks to each of us. Long corridors whisper, run to the children. Picket fences invite us to trail our hands along the slats. Physical objects have emotional messages of warmth, pleasure, fear, action, messages of come close, touch me, or stay away, or identity messages of I'm strong or I'm fatigued." Space releases a certain sort of energy in us. Sailing on our boat, my husband and I, in Lake Michigan, with the wind in my face, the sound of the boat slipping through the water, and the smell of fresh air swirling around my nostrils, I get goosebumps when I think about this space. It's true. Space speaks to us. It speaks to our emotions. It's powerful. Gaston Blanchard, one of Europe's leading philosophers, wrote in his book, The Poetics of Space, that as humans, we have the capacity to read a room, or read a space, or read a house, even though there are no words, there's no sentences, there's no paragraphs. Blanchard says that we can read the emotions of a room, and this reading controls how we personally experience places. The environment is indeed powerful. Yes, space influences us, it speaks to us, it's powerful. Think back to just a moment about your childhood and think of a space that you considered beautiful, or maybe a place of inspiration, or just a place you loved to go as a kid. As you think about this place, consider the sights, the smells, the sounds, who you were with, if you were alone, what it was your beautiful space. I'll give you just a second to think about that. And as you consider that childhood space, if you wish, jot it down in the chat box or in the question and answer box, I believe it is. And Tony will help me in sharing a few of these spaces. Just for just a few seconds, let's think about our childhood spaces.
And I will take a look. If you guys, there should be a chat box. You can use the chat box, or you can use the Q&A, and it would be helpful. Tell us a little bit, just some of your thoughts. We will not reveal who you are if you do not want us to, or we definitely will. So do you mind, Sandra, again, asking the question?
Think about your childhood space, a place that you loved to go where you felt comfortable and safe and secure and competent and powerful, and a place that you thought was beautiful in your childhood eyes. Just write down that space, what it might be.
Okay, great. We have one who has said to us, let me open it up here. One is her grandmother's house.
Ah,
And another one is, remember playing in her tree house in a big oak tree. I personally remember playing in a fort that was a space that we ran to first thing in the morning, and we wouldn't leave until we were called for dinner.
it's interesting as I listen to these spaces. I've done this activity a number of times with a number of people, and Grandma's house always comes up very, very interestingly. So space inspires, and you can continue to chat if you wish. I need to go on and talk about a little bit about that space that you were thinking about. Dr. Ruth Wilson, who is a well-known authority on child development and the importance of nature in children's lives, published an article in Exchange Magazine. She, in that article, asserted that children need beauty in their lives. And in fact, everyone needs beauty in our lives. As you thought about your childhood memory, your memory was beautiful. That beautiful memory is linked to emotions. Somehow you might have felt a tug of your heart as you thought about that childhood place, thought about your grandma's house. Emotions are linked to cognition. So if you read from left to right, your memory was beautiful, beauty is intertwined with emotions, and emotions is linked to cognition. So there are two important words as we go through this presentation. It's beauty and it's emotions. We know from the research of Calkins and Bell that beauty triggers emotions. And Calkins and Bell argued that child development is at the intersection of emotion and cognition. In other words, in order to learn, you have to be emotionally attached. So what I'm trying to get across in this presentation today is that beauty and emotions are the foundation of learning, and it also must be the cornerstone of design for early childhood environments. So in order to design our environments so we can promote lifelong learning, we need to have in our hallways beauty, and we have to have some sort of emotional attachment. So you may be wondering, so what's the connection? I don't get it. I thought we were going to be talking about hallways, not beauty and emotion and learning. The connection is simple. Your hallways can be stewards of connection, messengers of purpose, and signalers of this is a really good place to be. Your hallways can be keepers of people, not only the children, but the families and the community and the parents and the staff that go through. The key to this connection is beauty and emotion. The key to this connection is creating powerful moments even in the hallways of your center. So this is my granddaughter, Sierra Elizabeth, who's a sassy 8-year-old who just lost her third tooth. And when she was in preschool, I'd like to tell you a little story about everyday moments. When she was in preschool, I had the great pleasure of picking her up after preschool. She went to a nature preschool. And in an article for Community Playthings, I wrote about this experience of picking her up one day. Once buckled up, I would begin this typical conversation with my granddaughter, Sierra. Grandma, that's me. How was your day? C, fine. Grandma, what did you do? C, played. Grandma, who did you play with? C, my friends. Grandma, what did you play? C, nothing much. Grandma, what did you like best? C, everything. Finally, completely out of patience with my barrage of questions, Sierra said to me with much indignation, Grandma, it was just an ordinary and regular day. Now, I know for a fact that it was far cry from being an ordinary day because I could see the mud on her jeans and a bag of leaves and sticks on the back seat of the car. To a child who attended preschool and nature preschool and spent the majority of the days outside playing in the woods, I guess this day could seem pretty ordinary to her. However, looking back on this conversation, I'm going to wager another guess. The time that Sierra spent exploring and playing in the woods are moments that have actually shaped and defined her childhood. What I, as a grandmother, needed to remember is this: her regular, ordinary days was a succession of moments. And the beauty of her life and all our lives are captured in these everyday moments. For more of this story, you can just go to the website that I've listed up there. The importance about this story about everyday moments is we have the opportunity in our hallways to promote everyday moments. We have the opportunity to create hallways that will promote everyday moments, that we will have the moments that people will remember, and parents and children and our staff. To get started, let's talk about some of these moments. I think it's 5 invitations. The first invitation is a moment of invitation. Our brains are wired for novelty. We know from Piaget, and we know from some recent research, that our brains are wired for new things. Piaget says that's called disequilibrium, where we see something that's new and we have an acorn in our hands and the child doesn't know whether to assimilate it or accommodate it. But what the child does is he takes that acorn, he wonders about that acorn, he's curious about that acorn. And Piaget says disequilibrium is the motivator for learning. So when we have novelty, when we have new and unique things in our hallways, we have an invitation of curiosity. How can you do that in your hallway? Maybe you could introduce a small table that's called a curiosity table. I talk about that in my book, Through a Child's Eyes. The goal of the curiosity table is for you as the director or the teacher or whoever's in charge of the curiosity table is to put curious, interesting objects on that table and to change it out often. You can do it with so much cleverness, as many of these images that you're going to see today can show you. So curiosity table is one way to have a moment of invitation even in your halls. This table was a door hung on the wall, and when you open it up, becomes a curiosity table. So if you need the space in the hallway for something, you can close it up. When you're ready, you can open it. That's a little bit of a hard idea. It's harder than just putting a table that you found at a Goodwill shop. So the next idea is an invitation of curves. Our brains are wired and more comfortable with curves. This is something that I've recently learned. There was some research done by Descartes and Reeds, and what they did is they looked at environments that were rectangular and curvilinear, and this is what happened in that research. They called a group of adults, and I'm assuming that adults operate in pretty much the same way as children do in terms of brain structure, because we know that our brains are more likely and more accepting of curves. So they called some adults in to come into an area much like this. It was very rectangular, angular. You don't see any curvilinear types of furniture or furnishings, or even the windows are angular. Everything in this space is angular. And what they did is they watched how these group of adults responded in this angular environment. They observed them. They watched how they came in, how they interacted with people, what they did once they were in the space. And then they took the same group of adults and brought them into a curvilinear environment. And they again observed, what did they do when they got in this curvilinear environment? Was it different than the rectangular environment? What they found was that people, the adults that in this experiment, they were more engaged, increased conversation, positive body language, approached the environment quicker, and reported a feeling of relaxation, more so in the curvilinear environment. So what can we learn from this research that was done? What we might be able to learn is to think about our environments that we have created, not only in our hallways, but in our classrooms, and think about all the rectangular items that are in our classrooms and in our hallways. Once you start thinking about rectangular versus curvilinear, you will go, aha, maybe I need to introduce some curvilinear type elements into not only the hallways, but into my classrooms. Anita Rule Olds, who wrote the great Bible on design of early childhood centers, the book's called Child Care Design. She said in that book that curves wider than 90 degrees invite us to nest and inhabit a space, whereas sharp angles seem cold and rejecting. So if we think about our hallways, what we really want to do is we want to create spaces that are not cold and rejecting, but spaces that are inviting. So here's some ideas, very simple. Could you get a piece of round plywood, and could you mount it to the wall and put your shelving units on top of the curves? Could you buy some baskets and hang them on the wall? Just simple ideas. Or here's even a more complex, more expensive idea, but how could you put curves into your hallway? Here's a great idea, expensive again. Maybe it's not for you, but it just illustrates how curvilinear design on the ceilings and in the reception creates a more welcoming. This feels more welcoming to me rather than a rectangular, angular type of environment. Also, notice the image in the back behind the desk. It's even got some curves to it, and it's got some nature to it. Circle etched doors, that's an interesting way to incorporate curves. Okay, so once we get through with the curved idea, how about the idea of our brains are more comfortable with the colors of nature? So this is an invitation of nature's palette. Architects, city planners, building developers, everyone has started to recognize the benefits of biophilia. For example, there was some research conducted by environmental psychologist Ulrich, and what Ulrich found is he measured the impact of a patient seeing greenery outside of his window rather than a parking lot. And what he found was, all things being equal, patients with a window view of greenery, such as parks and trees, healed 1 day faster, needed less pain medication, and had fewer post-surgical complications than patients who saw a brick wall or a parking lot. In a more contemporary research study, Deborah Franklin found that time spent in a hospital garden or gazing through a natural window view can lower blood pressure and reduce anxiety, depression. Even the youngest patients in a children's hospital around the country are discovering the restorative influences of nature. Researchers have also found that plants in offices significantly increase workplace satisfaction, self-reported levels of concentration, and perceived air quality. They felt more relaxed when they were in office spaces that had even plants, just simple plants, not as wonderful as this floor-to-ceiling windows. So investing in landscaping the office shows a 15% increase in productivity in some of the research that's been done. So what does that mean for us? Well, what that could mean is when we think about our hallways, let's start thinking about natural colors. Let's start thinking about colors that you can find right outside your door. I think this is very important because it's important to bring the topography and the geography and the flora and the fauna that's right outside your center's door. Not that's across the world, not that's in another state, but what's outside your door. Open up your window, open up your door to your front door to your center and see what you see. If you're in Michigan, you might see birch trees. I took this picture outside Fullerton Child Development Center. I took this picture outside my office. It was the first fallen leaf. The important thing is, whatever your nature's palette is outside, bring it inside. Reflect the outside in your inside. Instead of primary colors, think about what nature has to offer. Bring nature's colors inside. These were child-found objects from an outside area, and these child-found objects could inspire a rug selection. I know that this is in the classroom, but could what you find outside inspire the colors of your hallway, the rugs, or the colors of the tile, or whatever is in your hallway? Could this inspire you? Here's a tree that inspired the tree bark itself. Look at the very inside nubby part of the tree bark. It inspired my good friend Chris Burkholder from Ohio's wall color. Color palettes, according to architect Lauren McGee, need not and should not be, though, limited to like the greens and the blues and the beiges and the neutral colors of nature. But it should also, if possible, offer a great deal of variation and depth, drawing from not only topography and geography color sources, but also cultural resources. So you can bring your cultural resources and those colors into your individual and community identity in your halls. This can be accomplished by linking places, communities, and people, customs, and crafts. So listen very quickly to what my friend says about.
Now that you've changed your classroom and made it more neutral, can you tell me a little bit about the process and how it's impacted the teachers and the children?
Right. So we were all primary colors in the past. We've been here for 20 years, and we decided to follow the newer research-based recommendations of having a more natural setting, more calming setting. The primary colors was a little bit overstimulating. So when we did our building renovation 2 years ago, we decided to go with all the natural palette and brought in ideas from the outside, pictures and art from our local Central Texas area, the animals, the birds, the flowers, the trees, all from Central Texas area. So we painted using the natural beiges. We did like a natural looking wood floor, and we used the flowers from our area. And it's just been a nice, natural, calming feel. The parents love it. The kids like it. And it's just been a really inviting environment to come into.
So now that you've changed your class.
So the next thing I'd like to talk about is our brains are more comfortable with home. So the invitation for this is home. And I learned something when I was doing a presentation for the Association for Learning Environments, which were mostly architects and planners and designers and furniture designers and place designers. I learned something in my research called resimercial, and I'd never really heard about this. A lot of offices nowadays, it's a trend to incorporate and do something called resimercial. And resimercial incorporates a home-like atmosphere into a commercial space. We can do the same thing. We have an institutional type space in our early childhood classrooms. Could we combine that with home and have a resimercial type design? So what they found with designing offices around the resimercial type of office design, that employers and workers had a better sense of well-being. They were more productive, collaborated better. So it seems like from the research that I've been reading about resimercial that it could be effective, not only in offices, but perhaps in our child care centers, as in specifically in our hallways. So resimercial attends to texture, a variety of seating, natural elements, ambient light. Think about what the light sources in your centers and in your hallways, in your classrooms, soft fabrics. So resimercial is a combination of institutional and residential, or commercial and residential. So we do a pretty good job of inside our classrooms of creating home-like spaces, like in the home living area, but we might not be thinking about this invitation of home in our hallways. Chris Burkholder, my friend from Ohio, puts a coffee bar into every single one of her centers. She combines residential and commercial and has resimercial in her centers. Now that's a pretty drastic idea, pretty expensive, but another thing she does is she puts out baskets of fruit. Does it cost a little bit more to put the baskets of fruit out? Can you do it now in COVID? Probably not. But this is one of those ideas that maybe you can store away for a rainy idea. Just a basket of fruit as you're on your way out or on your way in, that creates this sense of home. She also, and this is very, very interesting in terms of COVID, she has sinks out in her hallway, but what she did to make the kids feel more special in times of COVID is she added all those variety of scented soaps and disinfecting things in order for the kids to have a jolly old good time of using a variety of smells to wash their hands. And we at home have a variety of hand lotions and a variety of soaps. And so that's how resimercial comes into this. Okay, so let's take a real quick look at traditional versus resimercial hallways. Here's a traditional hallway. In his book, Blueprint for Tomorrow, Redesigning Schools for Student-Centered Learning, Prakash Nair, he's my hero now in terms of designing schools, urges designers to take advantage of the space of hallways. The majority of childcare centers are organized, aligned, or constructed along hallways. And it's depicting like this cells and bells design, where the bell rings, like in high school, and the student moves to the next cell. In child care centers, students do not move or change when the bell rings, but nonetheless, these long halls and corridors are the most prevalent type of design. Since it'd be challenging, both physically and financially, to reconfigure centers and to eliminate or reduce the hallways, which is what Prakash Nair suggests, one idea is to begin considering the hallways as places to be, the hallways as places to perhaps create. The hallways can have places. And if you look at this traditional hallway, Chris Burkholder, Ohio, Kids Country, this is what she did. She created a more home-like feel by putting these objects and places to be into the hallway. Now, could you do this if you had a regular hallway? Probably not, because of the width of the hall, but could you add a few things and stagger them out? You probably could do that and get away with it. In Chris's center, she always designs her hallways. Whoops, there's my timer. She always designs hallways wider than what is traditionally designed. Here's another idea, another one of Chris's hallways. So think about Resi Marshall. The second idea is a place to pause. Consider places to pause, like could it be a bench or a love seat or chairs or stools? Where could parents and children and even staff pause for a minute? How about places to create and collaborate, like a place to make something? Could you set up a little table and have them do rock painting or snowflake building like this one, or walking stick creating? Could there be a place in your hallway, maybe at the end of the hallway, where people could create? In this center, which is out in California, the school age group of children created mosaics, and that ended up in the hallway. A place to collaborate. How about a place where you could do kind of group things, like, and COVID is probably harder to do, but group weaving or a jigsaw puzzle or a group art. Here's a group weaving with a bicycle rim. Places to collaborate. This was a weaving of cardboard, and each child painted their own piece of cardboard, and then it was woven together. How about places to recognize and moments to display and honor? In this picture, you see an old window frame where the director placed children's images and pictures that they had made into the frame. You notice it's out in the hallway. It's right by the laundry room. When you're thinking about hanging stuff in the hallway, think about using all one color picture frame. And if you don't have all one color picture frame, go out and buy a bottle of spray paint and paint them all the same color. This picture was taken from New Shoots in New Zealand. Here you can see different kinds of children's, students' art, and it's all one color frame. That helps you create a better visual look. If you have bulletin boards in your hallway, think about covering them and making them more home-like. Like, for example, in this particular image, the teacher used cork squares. In this particular image on the bulletin board, the teacher used placemats. I just want to draw attention to how the children's art is displayed on top of their cubbies. And I also want to draw attention to those handles. When a child enrolls into this center, they get a handle and they get to put that handle on their cubby. And so every child has a different handle to their cubby. So let's see, we have 2 minutes. And as you think back on some of these ideas, like the curvilinear research that you learned about, nature's color palette, moments to collaborate, moments to create, places to pause, what idea do you think you might implement in your center? Or maybe there was an aha moment for you. Perhaps one of the thoughts presented inspired another idea for you. So if you wish, you can jot it down as I continue with one final thought. Hallways are places to connect. They're not just for coming and going. Hallways can be much, much more. They can be places to create, places to collaborate, places to recognize, places to honor, just places to be. But much more than this, hallways can be places of human connection. This purpose of the presentation was to change your perspectives about your hallways. Think about your hallways as being stewards of connections, messengers of purpose, signalers of this is a good place to be. I hope you've come to realize that the keys to this connection are beauty in motion, in emotion. The keys to this connection is creating powerful moments in your hallway or center. Here's an outlier thought, something that Prakash Nair suggests, and it could be very revolutionary to you. The next time you're designing a center, think about eliminating your hallways. How could you eliminate your hallways? One way, according to Anita Ruoz, 20 years ago, she suggested this pod-like concept. And if you see, in the middle is the administration, and there are 3 major pods. They're called communities. Each community has an infant, toddler, and preschool room in it. Each community is connected to a living room, dining room, kitchen kind of area. So there are 3 communities plus the school age room. There are no hallways, but there are communities. They are communities of connection, communities that are not separated by those long hallways. Would this be expensive to build? Absolutely. Would the cost benefit ratio be positive? Most likely. Should we remember that this idea, and perhaps at some point connect what we know about learning and best practices with the design of our environments? I believe the answer needs to be a resounding yes, because children have a right to worthy environments. I always end my presentations with my grandchild, Sierra Elizabeth, who's right there, was not 8, she's now 8, with one of my favorite quotes from Anita: children are miracles. We must make it our job to create with reverence and gratitude a space, even a hallway, that's worthy of a miracle. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sandra. Just a little feedback, Erin Collins said, I love the cubby handles that the kids get to pick on their first day. She thought that was a great idea.
Good, good.
We recently, in my Brockport location, we definitely have been taking an approach for years, actually, but more earth tones. Our hallways now, we've made them very clean. We have only several canvas photos that line the hallways, and then between them have ropes that swing between them with clips. So they're like clotheslines that go between the pictures, and then clips so artwork can be put up on the clips. So there's never this sort of messy, we put a photo here and there, which we'd love to display our artwork, but it has a very clean look, but it's also a very engaging look. We've had a lot of compliments back from the parents too. So I fully agree with you, and I'm so happy to have you present that these hallways really do speak. They say an awful lot about who you are, your vision, and also, like, which is big for me today, is your why. Why are you in this business? Why did you choose this to take care of these kids and build the next generation. So Sandra, thank you so much for your time. Would like to thank everybody. I'm going to take the screen, or if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to. Last time, I just want to thank everybody for joining. I want to thank you, Sandra, for spending your time with us today. And if anybody would like to get a hold of Sandra, you're welcome to reach out to us and we will pass you directly on to her. So thank you again for your time, and everybody have a wonderful rest of your week. Take care now and have a nice day. Bye-bye.